butelka, inne śmieci. Palisz nimi, trujesz dzieci. Ołów, azot, groźny smog nie odstąpi cię na krok.
Tato, a skąd się bierze smog?
Bardzo dobre pytanie, synu. Widzisz? Dowiakowa. Zobacz, jak rozrabia na podwórku.
To stąd ten cały smog?
No a jak?
Dzień dobry, pani Helenko. Wygląda pani jak zwykle. Czarująco.
Widzę, że szlifuje pan nową sztuczkę, panie Alojzy. No, ten samochód. Bardzo śmieszny.
Obawiam się, że nie rozumiem.
Boki zrywać, panie Alojzy.
To nie jest żadna sztuczka, pani Helenko.
Nie?
Po prostu jeździmy jednym samochodem do pracy. Tak jest bardziej ekonomicznie i ekologicznie. Przed panią nic się nie ukryje, pani Helenko. Oczywiście, że to jest sztuczka. Powiem więcej. Gwóźdź programu.
Wiedziałam.
A jak pan nazwie ten swój nowy trik, panie Alojzy?
Nazwę go Znikający Smog.
Chcesz się wreszcie pozbyć smogu, a korzystasz z samochodu? Nie jedź sam, lecz zabierz kogoś. Raz, że raźniej, dwa, że zdrowo. Raz, dwa, trzy, o powietrze zadbaj ty.
Te i inne sztuczki pomagające rozprawić się ze smogiem poznasz zaglądając na www.powietrzemazowia.pl.
The EU's environmental policies and laws bring undeniable benefits, protecting, preserving, and improving the environment for present and future generations. We have great laws, in fact the most ambitious ones in the world. But they are not always properly applied by EU member states. This can be because of poor coordination among local, regional, and national authorities, or perhaps because they are not financed well enough. Sometimes it's just down to a lack of knowledge and data. We have many big problems, especially in the areas of waste, water, air and nature. But the EU can help, bringing countries and other players together to share information, methodologies, and best practice so that problems can be worked through and overcome. In this way, the EU itself helps countries to fully apply the environmental laws, protecting all EU citizens and enhancing their quality of life.
Szanowni Państwo, powoli.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please take your seats? The coffee break is now over, and I believe that you've had a chance to see the garden exhibition. If not, you'll have the chance later on, because the garden is open also after this part of the meeting. And now we are in for the panel, and the panel will be chaired by Dr. Leszek Karski, UKSW and Warsaw University of Technology lecturer who specializes in sustainable development laws in areas as energy and efficiency. Many participants of the environment process, health and safety process under the auspices of World Health Organization. Dr. Karski, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm thrilled to be one of the conference participants. I'm truly honored to be a part of this session that is so very much important for Mazowsze, for Poland and for the European Union as such. I'd like to thank the organizers, Mazowsze, the Marshal, Director Marcin Podgórski, for the fact that we can be here with you. I'd like to thank the speakers and say that our time is pretty limited, therefore would you please be disciplined. Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of fact, it's been great. Poland delivers on sustainable development tasks. We are the leader of the domain of environment protection laws, waste law, air protection law, climate, not a problem for us. We've been implementing duly and on time. We are the best in the European Union. Everybody looks up on us because not only do we create theoretical laws, but we also implement in a practical way. What I said is the future. It is the future we try to get at. We try to get at this future owing to the values attached to environment laws, development and implementation. And the values mean quality of life, mean our health and safety and well-being. This is the protection of premature deaths. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is so important to implement EU's environment protection laws, to make the law efficient, more than theory, to make it practice in our day-to-day business. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the wonderful speakers. The organizers have expanded the discussion scope. Not only do we speak about energy efficiency, which will be the highlight of the meeting, we are going to have broad scope panel on efficiency of environmental protection laws. The speakers with this expanded formula and format represent self-government, national government, science and business milieus. Ladies and gentlemen, and now let us present the speakers. Because the speakers have sent us information, let me read it out in order not to skip very important information.
First of all, I would like to welcome Krystyna Kuzma, who is responsible for sustainable green at the Office of the President of Forces responsible for green areas management as well as many other aspects. She graduated from the London School of Economics and Political Science, where she holds a PhD in economic. Ludmila Golatowska, the president, who represents the city of Warsaw. She has been working there since 2016. Before that, she had been a director for many years. By education, she's an economist, and also she is responsible for the piping and the water supply system in Warsaw. Magdalena Grajda, who is responsible for the environmental fees at the Marshal's office in Mazovia Voivodeship. She is responsible for the environment protection. She collects the money for the fund for the environment protection, and we joked that she actually collects so much money that she is the treasurer, the real treasurer. We have got 52 entities in the fund. She also has a database about waste management in Mazowsze. Wojciech Augustowski, who is the head for the Analysis and Evaluation Department at the Ministry of Environment. He deals with various European initiatives regarding the implementation of the environment protection policy, as well as the evaluation of public interventions in 2020. Director Jarzyński, the first Deputy Director of the Chief Inspectorate for Environment Protection from the Łódź University, and is responsible for a very important instrument of the implementation of environment protection laws. These are inspections in the Mazovia region. And then I would like to introduce you to Szczepański, Director of the Institute for Environment Protection from the Polish Research Institute. His nearly entire career has been connected with various state-run institutions at the regional, local, as well as central level. He is a member of the Committee of Environment Engineering of the Polish Academy of Science. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, there is a whole array, and this wealth that is represented is quite amazing. We can see the expertise. They represent basically all of the aspects of the legal and legal provisions implementation. So now we can have a brief conversation. It's going to be brief but very substantial. Ladies and gentlemen, the first round of questions is connected with the implementation process. So when we talk about the implementation process, we ask why we want to implement the European Union law regarding the environment protection. What are the doubts? And so my first question is about the positive aspects regarding the implementation, as well as values that you can notice in this process. So thank you very much. Let me start with you. With a lady. It doesn't work. Works? It works? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and thank you very much for the invitation to such a wonderful event, when I can share with you what the city of Warsaw has been doing regarding the environment protection. So what Marshal Struzink mentioned during the opening ceremony, the quality of life in a city is about the quality of the environment of the city. And so with such an approach and looking at how to manage it, the president decided, the mayor decided to change the structure to have a more integrated approach to environment protection. So it is my pleasure to be the coordinator for sustainable development, and it's a process of implementation that we are discussing here. And so it is about creating one structure for all of the institutions that are responsible for the climate, for the greens, and also for the quality of air, that is the low altitude emission and the particulate matter pollution. So it is my task to improve the situation, and in my opinion it was a very good idea to combine them with just one person, one coordinator at the top of the structure, because all of those aspects are very much intertwined. So creating the new structures for the developers, for the enterprises, so we are thinking about energy saving, but also about the green walls and green roofs. And so this is the Office for Environment Protection that is responsible for it. However, the energy standard, these are the competencies of the Office for Air Protection. And in order for all of those activities to converge, to be integrated, they are all under one head and one manager. And I know that we have very little time, so I will mention that we increase the green areas, the amount of trees, and these are trees along the main arteries, main streets. But we also take over areas to reintroduce trees there, to have forest within the city. These are important areas for the inhabitants. We exchange the borders. We also support the RESs. We have a lot of different motions and also applications to exchange the borders. So this is very important. We already have 1,600 and it's only applications, but it's only May that is, and we also reduce the CO2 emissions. I'm sure we'll have more time and opportunity to answer more questions and tell you more about us during the discussion. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Regarding the discussion combined with the conference today, when we talk about certain legal regulations, it is important to understand a wider context. So the policy of the EU started to be introduced in the middle of the 1970s.
Różnego rodzaju przepisów, dyrektyw czy rozporządzeń.
So we have a lot of different regulations, we have a lot of directives, and generally speaking, the member states do not have a problem when it comes to the direction in which we should go. So there are also certain legal solutions and provisions where there are certain aspects that are literally introduced, some are not, and so we have a common goal, but at the same time the member states do not reach those ambitious plans. And for some time now, the European Commission has started various interesting initiatives. This is about a review of implementation. It's not the whole policy, but this review is very interesting, very much necessary. The first review was carried out in April 2017. The second report was published this year, and every member state has been described in a separate report. And you can see very clearly the situation that on the whole, everybody agrees on the goals and that certain things should be implemented. However, there are discrepancies when it comes to individual provisions. Thank you very much. We move on. Good afternoon. Regarding the question, what positive aspects do we see when it comes to the introduction of norms or legal positions? So for my industry, for the waterworks, regarding the biggest company in the industry, I have to say that we have many benefits. We have multi-billion investments that have been implemented in the entire industry. And this is also about adjusting to the EU directives, the water directive that has been implemented into the national legislation that has caused many different sewage treatment and water treatment facilities. There are multiple kilometers that have been done in my industry. There was a big project that was co-financed from the EU means, and over the 12 years we had already 2.5 billion worth projects. We also modernized Czajka water treatment plant and also the left river bank sewage is now being sent to Czajka, so we have fulfilled all of the requirements. We have modernized the water treatment facilities in Pruszków and Południe. 2 big collectors have been also constructed. So all of this is combined with fulfilling the requirements from the environment protection area. So now we are trying to limit the effects of climate change. So we have got the transit and retention functionalities, collectors that will allow us to manage sudden rainfalls. It is a smart solution that will allow us to manage the flow of sewage in the system. So this will allow us to avoid local flooding and to develop further the environment protection area. Ladies and gentlemen, I will refer to values. The key element regarding the value of sustainable development regarding climate change such aspects are environment protection, soil protection, waste management, natural environment protection, and nature protection. When it comes to the Department of Environmental Fees, deals with collecting fees for economic usage or environment. Up to date, it is 87 million zloty. 87 million zloty from the usage of the environment. The means that have been already transferred to the fund is 47 million. It is a big value that as a financial instrument which treat justly and equally everybody using the natural environment in Mazowsze, in Mazovia. So it is the marshal who takes the decisions regarding the fees, uses the administrative and legal mechanism to control, to take decisions, but also to give certain discounts if they are grounded. In my opinion, the environment protection is very important, and within that, it is important to order all of the institutions and financial tools and instruments. It is very important to implement the EU regulations as well as wide access to data regarding the natural environment. We also need to improve our database in order to be able to modify them appropriately and prepare reports. Thank you very much. Now we go for the Voivodeship Inspectorate for Environment Protection. Thank you very much. It is a great pleasure for me to be here, to be able to talk with you on these subjects from the legal point of view. I would like to, first of all, mentioned that the legal provisions regarding the environment protection are these days a very dynamic legal system, and it is connected with the climate change, also the constant implementation of the EU law. And I do believe that there is also the added benefit that also the environment protection has become an obvious thing for the entrepreneurs. However, we still face a lot of challenges because we also realize that it is a challenge to fulfill all of the duties and also to be able to foresee what the new duties will be. At the same time, you have to ensure that we have a smooth running administration that will execute all of those issues. So regarding the EU provisions and the sanctions, we have to admit that all of the member states have to create a system that is going to execute all of those duties. Many countries have a certain leeway. However, in Poland, we can see that we have got a lot of different. It is civil code, it is also the penal code, and also there are certain administrative provisions as well. So thank you very much. So now we will go to effective learning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Environment Protection Department, and when it comes to the implementation, I have to say that for the last 15 years, this is our EU membership and also the pre-accession period. In my opinion, this implementation of the EU laws means that we have to be more active. There are many conventions, there are many different meetings regarding this legislation, and we have to be ahead, one step ahead, to also realize that certain things are coming up and not be surprised by legal acts that then, depending on the normative act, whether it will be the EU Commission or the European Parliament, we have to anticipate them. Very often they come as regulations that enter into force outside of the parliamentary votes. So then we might run into trouble. Another aspect is a certain ability to implement those laws. When it comes to the directives, all of the member states agree on the goals. However, reaching those goals, we know that each member state is on a different developmental level. There are different solutions, and of course, they believe in the solutions that they had already implemented, sometimes try to enforce them in other countries. So France is going to talk about nuclear energy because this is where the interests lie. So it's very difficult to reach certain compromises and certain solutions on the level of 28 countries. On the national level, however, it is the aspect about how to implement those provisions, because the directives give us a certain framework and certain indices as well. However, how we write it in our system, how we are going to achieve those goals, that means that our law needs to be efficient enough to be able to execute what is written there. That we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but we are making progress. So we can't say that it's bad or it's getting better. Well, it is getting better, but it can always get even better. So now the second round of questions. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talked about the implementation, we started entering a certain area. This is about the improvement. So the second question is, what possibilities for improvement, process improvement, do you see, and what are the good practice examples. Maybe I will start with the best practices, the good practices. The city of Warsaw as a city uses a lot of opportunities regarding cooperation within the EU, using the EU funds. We also have very extensive project with the Environment Protection Fund. We expand the green areas, and within the integrated territorial investments, we have been building a very complex system of over 130 sensors within Warsaw, but also with other communes about the quality of air. So, of course, because air knows no boundaries, no borders, it is not just about Warsaw, but this is also the neighboring communes. So, from the LIFE program, we get means from biodiversity and also keeping the Warsaw nature in the best possible state. So I would look at how the funds are being developed, and we know that from the budget of the city we are unable to fund all of the project and all of the issues. I'm talking about the air at the moment. We would also have to have the thermal insulation of the buildings. These are really important issues, but the needs are vast. So we have got central governmental level and also voivodeship level as well as local levels. We need to take on all of those levels the needs that come up there. So it has already been mentioned that we want to inform about the needs on all kinds of meetings.
The next speaker. In my presentation, I'd like to focus on this implementation phase when this is to be implemented by a specific inhabitant of a city of Poland. It is very important to communicate the essence of a specific measure and the objective it is to attain, to inform on the possibilities of using particular solutions. As it was said at the beginning of the conference, no one needs to be convinced that the environment should be taken care of. What we need to do is the message on how to do it. To my liking, implementation should go in line with the recipient. If an inhabitant is to observe specific code of action, like waste segregation, for example, it should be clearly communicated. In the States, there's been this behavioral attitude towards public policies where inhabitants decode and use specific regulations, and very often they give up regulating new things. They no longer regulate and replace regulations with information campaigns, which, what is most important, produces an excellent result. Thank you very much. It was Professor Borysa Rostowska at Warsaw University who was responsible for that, and she was dealing with this in a broad scope. Lady President, let me start with good practices. Speaking about good practices, I will also indicate the implementation process amelioration. Starting with our statutory activities, we try to implement the methods that least interfere with the environment, and I think about no trench utilities installation and cutting at the solutions to counteract odious smells in waste ducts. We offer flexible reaction as far as new solutions are concerned, and therefore we increase the energy efficiency. We generate 20% of the energy from our own means. This is biogas that is generated in sewage treatment plants. And we have already started renewable energy process We are going to install PV panels on 10,000 hectares, 7 facilities of our company, which will provide 10% extra of energy generation. Speaking about other interesting solutions, we start the Blue Alternative Project implementation, where we want to replace the existing transport with compressed natural gas and biomethane that we produce. We have 2 refueling stations under construction. We'll have the means of transport, therefore will limit the emissions into the air. This is the part of the air protection. Wonderful achievement. And Lady Director. So let's do it this way. Let me start with things that get better as far as the implementation is concerned with regards to EU regulations. We should have the right addressees of the information. They should be informed that there is a regulation that needs to be observed. The general public should know that. Therefore, the department I represent utilizes lots of information activities. We organize educational campaigns in the form of free of charge trainings for entrepreneurs who use the natural resources, be it in our office or the office's branches. 500 or 600 people have received the training. They are able to provide reports, make calculations of the payment, which is by no means easy. We also issue the round robins or circular letters to different sectors of economy's representatives, be it the transport, air conditioning owners and operators, air carriers, and this has produced a very good response. So we've got efficient laws. Lady Director, thank you very much. The Voivodeship Inspector takes the floor now. This is a very important aspect you're speaking about, this informative aspect. Let me draw your attention to yet another aspect that is associated with the panel, law efficiency. What does that mean? What kind of laws are efficient? Laws are efficient when it meets the objectives. And we have 2 kinds of objectives. Indirect objectives to reach the target state, and direct ones. Direct ones relate to legal norms, whether this is observed by the norms addressee. In my assessment, it is very important to analyze the efficiency of the laws that have been implemented, the law that has been enforced for a period of time. How is it observed? Does it deliver on the objectives as stipulated originally? We pay great attention to regulations efficiency throughout the legal process. Much effort should be devoted to the law efficiency when it is the binding law. The 2 other speakers. The first thing related to legal regulations. Consulting process is very important. On the one hand, it informs. On the other hand, it is a kind of evaluation, because this is the feedback that informs us on what and how to correct things. This participatory aspect is very important, because the regulations are up down to the regional and local level and to the personal level of inhabitants. This triggers understanding. We know why we should instill changes in day-to-day lives. The Norwegians seem to be a paragon icon. They do give up segregation at source. They've been training their inhabitants for 20 years and discovered it does not operate well. The segregation at source requires further segregation and purification. So we shouldn't be one-directional. We shouldn't be following just one stream. We should evaluate. We should arrive at the objectives in a specific way. It is very important when legal regulations are being prepared. There is just one thing that was signaled, because this is what we do, signaling. Information. If we know what the situation is, if we have the data at hand, we can analyze it. We can go to Brussels and say, in our case, what you've offered does not work at all. We're not going to deliver. We need to be ready for that with the data in hand. And we need to show the scientific aspect. And we need to show the way how we are going to reach it. It is important that we have a data and information pool that has been analyzed by our experts in the working groups. And we should fight for our rights. Thank you very much, Director. That was the second round of the question. Let's have a kick-off start of the third one. The third one is associated with cooperation. If we want to have an efficient environment protection law, cooperation is a must. Therefore, my question, what do you think about this cooperation between self-government, government, business, science cooperation? Can we expand it? Can we enhance it? If so, how? Yes, it can be better. You can always say that. I can speak about three aspects. First, cooperation with the business. We speak about technologies that the business has got and may share with the self-government. And network companies that are a key partner in implementation of the program to use municipal central heating and boiler replacement problem. Thank you very much. No. Yes. Banks, financial sector and the government. I want to say a few words about the government. The government has got a long homework to do. I'm speaking about my needs. There is no core curriculum in Polish schools on environment changes, so kids are not taught about environmental changes at all. And will I be able to say something at the very end? I'm a timekeeper. Let me return to what I was saying before. Information, communication is very important. 2018 awareness survey on ecology indicated that inhabitants don't know what circular economy means. In the years to come, much will be happening. There is much to do here. Therefore, this kind of awareness checking tool may be the way to implement certain regulations or coin up campaigns. Thank you very much. I am sorry, this is my role to watch time. Mr. Kowalczyk said that efficiency of administration of all levels results in implementation. Thank you very much. Lady President, the company is a public utility company that renders services for inhabitants, and it is associated with the local government because the local government is close to local inhabitants, and therefore we cooperate with local and self-governments of all kinds. This is a very good cooperation in delivering the investment plans for specific districts of the city. We have a coordinating body. We cooperate with different self-government bodies as well as the Warsaw City Council, the modernization plan is accepted by the city's council. This very good cooperation can be expanded and deepened in the scope as said before, like, for example, alternative fuels use in other units of the city. Lady Director. Cooperation and communication between self-government, the government, the business is the key to success. We cannot possibly imagine our activities devoid of any kind of cooperation. In the aforementioned areas, COBIS, Ministry, the Fund for Environment, mayors, scientific centers, National Fund for Environment Protection, Voivodeship Fund for Environment Protection, law enforcement bodies, prosecutor's office, and courts of law. This is scope of cooperation. The newly created waste database is a good example. This is a touch point for the government, self-government represented by the marshal, and entrepreneurs. Very interesting instrument, and pass on the microphone. Yes, this cooperation might be multifaceted. The administration cooperation is also important because the environment protection entities and bodies are at the government and self-government levels. It seems that the Environment Protection Inspectorate plays the leading role, and therefore what we discover is transferred to other bodies, so that an entrepreneur is not controlled by 3 bodies within the same scope, but this is complementary. And this is the cooperation of different departments, including the ones that is responsible for fee, for environment, in particular, Marshal's office. Thank you very much. Director, I don't know how to sum it up because it was a quick, I feel as if I were ordered in the army, although I've never been to the army. Speaking about the core curriculum, this is the secondary school when we speak about climate changes. I've checked it. There's a few lessons about climate in technical schools and secondary schools. And the impact question. The city has got rid of this kind of, because if the city is responsible for the water company, we can do it differently from what we have at the moment. Speaking about the companies, we need to think about earning, but not only income. I cooperate with different institutions which develop gas networks, and companies are afraid of investments which do not produce financial results. Therefore, they need to get extra arguments to re-evaluate health costs, for example, public services, health services costs. And this evaluation should be comprehensive. Not only do we look at the limitation of a particular negative substance, but also impact on the climate, and so on and so forth, like carbon footprint, LCA, and other methods we all know. Thank you, Director. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the end of the 3rd round. Therefore, the swift finish-off session. Thank you very much for listening to this quick debate. We had only 45 minutes. And I think we'll have the possibility to speak at the conference, because these people speak about very interesting issues. I'd like to thank the Marshal. Mazowsze is a wonderful region. It has got great potentials to implement regulations. The quality of life is getting better and better, owing to the fact that environmental protection laws are efficient. Mazowsze has got wonderful instruments associated with environment protection laws, such as Mazowsze loan guarantees or Mazowsze Energy Conservation Agency. So pay more and more attention to your behavior, to your conduct, through the prism of the environment, because Environmental Protection Act, whenever rational, is our attitude demonstrated to other people. May we all attain the goals as fast as possible and therefore live in a sustainable way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, never ever have I seen such a disciplined or terrorized debate, so to speak. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to thank the speakers. Bye-bye. Thank you. Doctor, I'm afraid to make other announcements. You are standing behind me. Is this my microphone? No, it's mine. You can take that over if you wish. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the second part of the meeting, and let us start the third one. The third one is important for a group of people gathered here. This is important because accolades and prizes will be distributed. Mazowsze opened competitions. The Marshal did not mention the details because we should increase the suspense. It is my pleasure to announce Agnieszka Oleszkiewicz of Chlorophyll Foundation, the ecological competition for recycling, Mazowsze Primary Schools competition. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy to be the representative of an NGO represented here. It is the 5th time we have had this Recycling Master competition, Recycling Champion competition. We have enjoyed the support of the Marshal ever since the beginning of the competition. It increases the value of the competition. Not only are these big cities' children, but also small towns and villages' children taking part in that. This competition is also the tool to implement regulations on ecological education. I think that this shows our understanding that information disseminated amongst the general public is very important. This is associated with sustainable development-related challenges. The competition brings together the people who find ecology important, who find environment protection important. We would not have had the competition devoid of the pupils, but the pupils have been prepared by the teachers. And this year we had 200 teachers taking part in the preparation phase. 2,500 participants of 332 eco teams and 166 units have been prepared. The competition is as follows. There are 5 open questions addressed by the eco teams. Every year the questions are different, yet relate to very important issues. And our assessment is related to the knowledge, originality, delivery robustness, attitudes. It can be a happening or an artistic installation, a poster, a flyer. You have examples of the works left of the stage to the National Environmental Protection Fund. There is a poster and the winning objects of this year's competition. I just want to say that we provide our support for the teachers. They get lesson plans and our internet apps like Edu Games that make it possible to transfer knowledge and target pupils trying to find the answer to questions. One of the applications was presented Energy Global Art Prize for Poland in ecological education, and the game is also available there. I'd like to invite the best eco team of Mazowsze, the Twisted Ones from Łańska Primary School near Warsaw. Join us, and we'll be joined by Deputy Director, Headmaster Ewa Grzymała from Łańska Primary School, and the Marshal and the Commissioner. Please join us up there on stage because you will be presenting the accolades. And a round of applause because it's not easy to win the competition. The Marshal and the Commissioner are presenting the winning team with Google VR sets. You have been presented. The Commissioner and the Marshal are staying with us. This is time for a family photo. Jacek Banaszek, the CUW Director, is also requested to join us on stage for this family photo. Thank you very much indeed. Congratulations. Take your seats. It was the first competition, not the last one. Marcin Podgórsky, Waste Management Department, Emissions and Integrated Permits will be joining us. Climate adaptation, according to my opinion, for post-primary schools.
Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, our youth know a lot about the environment, as we could find out during the award-giving ceremony for the winners of this first competition. Actually, the determination of those young people very often is amazing for us, because we have got Greta from Sweden here, who spoke so vividly about environment protection, for example, during our climate summit. And so we wanted to have this project show with the adaptation to climate change. Of course, in the public sphere, we have been talking about it for quite a while. However, not everybody knows what it's all about. The natural environment has been degraded, devastated so much and to such an extent that some of the changes are irreversible. That means that we have to adapt to the climate that has been modified by those changes. And so we are talking about certain weather turbulences, so many different issues. This competition was very difficult. However, because our youth is very ambitious, thanks to people who have supported the young people, the leaders and the project supervisors, we were able to choose the best works. Their works have been very interesting, and we have decided to give 2 awards. One is a distinction. Anna Jastrzębska receives it, who worked a lot with data presenting the result of the project, and the second distinction goes to Kacper Piątek, who was not afraid to show himself. He created a picture. He wanted to show what he would like to do in Wyszków in order to adapt to climate change with the surroundings. And Klaudia Kępczyńska receives the first award. She very precisely defined what should be done regarding healthcare, public safety, to adapt the environment to climate change. And this is why this project was evaluated so highly by the committee. Thank you very much for those words of introduction. So if we said A, we need to say B. I would like now the winner, Klaudia Kępczyńska, the adaptation to climate change in my eyes, and Renata Prusnova-Bajka, who was the supervisor and coordinator, and also Kacper Piątek, Anna Jastrzębska, and Adam Mickiewicz, the director of the school in Wyszków. Could you tell us a few words? First of all, I am grateful that I could participate in this competition. The majority of things I have mentioned in my presentation have already been discussed here today, so it's difficult to say anything else. What else shall I say? Well, give her a hand. So somebody shouted from the audience. We would like to know more about your project. What did you do? Because you have won this competition. Klaudia prepared a presentation, Adaptation to Climate Change in My Eyes. It was about Ursynów, the southern part of Warsaw. What can be done, how it can be done. First of all, she emphasized that it needs to be a campaign, educational and informational campaign for young people, but for all of the inhabitants of Ursynów. Many solutions that have been mentioned during the conference as well. It was a multimedia presentation, so Klaudia was going to show this presentation, and when we came, it turned out that there will not be a screening of the presentation. Then it changed our plans. I'm not sure whether it's going to be available anywhere, but I highly encourage you to see it. Thank you very much. Congratulations again. And now I would like the commissioner and the marshal again to present the awards. Gentlemen, please come forward. And I'm going to hand you the awards. The Marshal hands over the diploma and the main award. This is the first award to Klaudia Kępczyńska for the adaptation to climate change, and the Commissioner hands over a symbolic invitation for a trip to Brussels.
I proszę nie odchodzić, zapraszam do wspólnego zdjęcia.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not leave the stage. We would like to take a family photo.
I dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much. Dear Marshal, please remain on the stage. All the other guests, please return to your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to conclude now, but we are going to start with the host, but also we usually finish with the words of the host. So, dear Marshal, dear Commissioner,
If you could tell us a few words at the end of the meeting.
Very good. No, I think this was a very successful event, and I have to thank Marshal Adam because he worked a lot for this. He supported us a lot. I think today we were discussing a number of global issues. We have big challenges ahead of us. We have the challenge of climate change. We have the challenge of ocean pollution. We have the challenge of air pollution. We need to protect our biodiversity, which we are losing, water quality. All these are big challenges. And when they are combined, their combined effect is enormous. And I shudder, I am afraid even to think about what will be the future, not for me, perhaps not for the Marshal, but for these young people. I think when we talk about the planet, someone once said that we do not inherit the planet from our ancestors, but we borrow the planet from our future generation. I have 5 children, and my nightmare is that we will be leaving behind us a planet which is worse than we found it, and that we cannot do. I think we need to start taking remedial action. We need to start reversing the environmental losses that we are going through. But on the positive side, I think that the younger generation themselves are very much aware of what is happening. And they are asking us, they are telling us, they are demanding from us that we change our lifestyles, we change our way that we produce and use and consume. And that is what we're trying to do. I think the European Union has got very, very good environmental legislation, but unless that legislation is implemented, we will get no results. Our citizens, 500 million European citizens, will assess us not on what we say, but on what we do. We are not assessed on the amount of legislation that we write, but on the amount of the implementation of that legislation. I think we owe it to our future generations that we give them a better environment than the one that we found. In the past, we have made a lot of mistakes where we have to take now remedial action. I think we have to change that thinking, and we need to start taking preventive action. It's not let's harm the environment and then we will remedy later. That will not work anymore. So I believe that yes, this was a successful event because it tackled the issue of implementation, the need to implement European environmental laws. Once again, thank you, Marshall. I want to thank Warsaw. It's been a pleasure. We were given a king's hospitality, I would say. This morning, I even had the opportunity to walk a little bit outside my hotel, and I could notice the progress, the beauty of your beautiful country, of your beautiful Poland, of your beautiful Warsaw. So thank you very much for everything.
Szanowni
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Commissioner, dear participants, we are reaching the end of this event. I believe that this Green Week, the European Green Week, has begun really well. We started well here in Warsaw. I would like to thank again the European Commission that they have entrusted us with this task. I would say the following. Regarding the environmental issues, everything starts with the smallest community, which is the family, and finishes with the greatest community, which is humanity. We have to be aware of the fact that the actions of every single person on the educational level, but also in everyday actions, our daily behavior and decisions actually translate into global phenomena. I hope that this event has proven how important legislation is, but how important the thinking of human beings is, the responsibility for our planet, for our environment. But what Professor Karski said, it is important that we treat the law as our attitude towards another person, another human being, but also towards the natural environment, nature itself, and all living creatures. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for today. I do believe that all of this influences our positive attitude towards everything that surrounds us, but also that keeps us alive. Thank you very much. So that would be the end. So I consider the Green Week to be open, and I would like to invite you to lunch, exactly the same spot where we had our coffee break. Thank you very much.